state your name. We don't want Duke Energy to think that this town hall is full of happy customers. Thank you.
My name is Neil Cosentino. I'm a retired Air Force pilot at Big Deal. And I'm started a business for solar energy. And I contacted the Federal Highway Department administration, and I said, we want to put solar voltaic panels on all our bridges in the United States. And I said, is there a bridge in the United States that has solar voltaics on it? And he said, call me back in a week. And he said, no. So I said, okay, let's have a federal policy about that, using bridges to put solar voltaics in metro-centric areas. So we have 6 long bridges. This is ground zero for this idea. And so to make money, we have to be able to sell the power and as a business. And to sell the power in this case, and what makes it unique about metro-centric solar arrays is that at both ends of the commercial approaches to the bridges, whether it's Olmonton Road or Gandy or Kennedy, that's where you'd sell out. You sell out your power. So if you have a business or a resident along or near those bridges, you are a customer. And that means that you would come to us, or we would come to you actually, once we're successful, and we'll say, okay, instead of putting the solar voltaic panels on your roof, you're a business where no one can see it, and it's small, why don't you buy X number of panels and we'll put them on the bridges, and then everyone will see it. So if you get 150,000 cars...
Is this about Duke Energy? Because
well, Duke won't let us. We have to sell our energy to Duke, and we're not going to make any money that way. So that's why I'm introducing this idea to this community, because obviously this community...
But if you could focus your comments on Duke Energy, that would be most helpful.
Well, the first thing we said is, why are we dealing with monopolies?
I agree.
Hello, this is free enterprise, but what you're doing actually, because we looked at different ways. How do you not cut the head off of a big corporation? You don't do that. But what you're doing will do the same thing, because basically you're saying it's a monopoly, but if there's free enterprise, it's no longer a monopoly. If it's a free, if you buy from the bridge from us, and you can buy from Duke Energy, you can buy from TECO, you can buy from anyone you want. But we want a fair competition. Duke will give that to us. So I thank you, and
thank you.
Let's be successful. If you're successful, you'll have all 6 bridges in Tampa Bay producing energy, and believe me, we'll be a global brand. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person, if you would, are you all Duke Energy satisfied customers? Well, then come to the microphone and tell us that, so we will know about some of the issues that you're actually having with Duke Energy. One of the ones I find appalling is that you're still paying for a nuclear plant that will never be in use because of Duke Energy's mismanagement. Okay, ma'am?
My name is Julia Watson, and I don't represent anybody except myself. But I will tell you that all week long I've been telling my friends that there's going to be a miracle on 5th Street in St. Petersburg this week. And I really do feel that this is a miracle, because so many different political type groups are coming together here. I will confess at this point, I am a liberal Democrat, and I love this woman. So, see, miracles can happen. But for Duke Energy, I am one of the people who just pays their bill every month and watches it go up and up, and thinks about all the sunshine. And I just cannot believe that they are allowed to influence the Public Service Commission, the governor, and the legislature to the degree that they do, with the money that I pay them every month, so that they can block the sunshine.
Thank you, excellent. I like it. Nice color. Okay, someone else want to come forward? Okay.
My name is Russell Coney. Duke Power uses their monetary power to get legislation. Okay. Duke Energy uses their monetary power to get legislators and legislation to see. All right.
Can you hear now?
Right, Duke Power uses their monetary power to get legislators and legislation that solidifies their power in the power. I personally don't care how much I spend to put in a solar array. Sooner than let Duke Energy. I want a choice.
Thank you. Here we go.
My name is Nancy Jacobson, and I just don't like having our electric controlled by a monopoly. I think everyone here has read about the horrible, rotten things that Duke has done to us. Last week I noticed when I was paying my electric bill over a week early, Duke had changed my due date, and it would have gotten there late had I not noticed it. So I'm sure they did that to a lot of other people too.
Thank you. Okay, next person, okay?
Good evening, everybody. So as we all know, we don't like Duke. Instead of just sitting back and being passive about that, I installed a 5 kilowatt system on my house last year. I got a $10 bill every month because it's just my customer service fees. I produce more energy than I've used. Duke therefore has bought it from me at wholesale rate and turned around and sold it at retail rate. So I do feel that they're still making money off of me, even though I'm running off of solar, because they're charging the fuel charge, whereas going to my neighbor's house doesn't consume a lot of fuel. I got an electric car.
Yes.
Take that to the gas companies. I bought 12 shares of stock in Duke Energy. I do plan on going to their shareholder meeting next year. It's a really great idea because they listen to shareholders. There's a lot more that we can do rather than just talk about things. I did take advantage of their Sunsets program. I feel that if anything, the PSD needs to pressure them to bring back that program because without it, sooner or later I would have got it. It was a lifelong dream of mine to have solar. But getting that $10,500 credit back from Duke definitely made it a lot more manageable to my checking account. But like with anything, if you have a problem, you go to the outlets and buy 1 share of stock. That gives you a ticket to Charlotte, North Carolina to speak at their annual meeting. And you can tell them and their entire board what you think. Thank you.
Excellent. Next person. If you would like to speak, just come on up here.
Hi, my name is Rick Looney. I'm here on a dual purpose. I'm a state solar contractor. And my issue with Duke Energy is I know a lot of people from Citrus County. I'm right on the borderline of Citrus County. And a couple of years back when they got stiff for their taxes, I'm sure you heard that on the news, the property taxes, they refused to pay the full amount and paid about half the amount and said that if you don't like it, sue us. You know, and I thought that that's totally against the law, really. And how can they do that to a government entity? So it's just, they're against my living, really. And I'd like to see a little more done about it from people like this.
Thank you. Next person. How many of you in this room are tired of paying for that nuclear plant that will never go online? then come up to the microphone and if you haven't spoken and if you would like to express your grievances, that would be great.
My name is Carolee German, and I represent only myself and a lot of friends who feel the same way I do. I had solar energy to heat hot water in Virginia, which gets nowhere near the sun that we have in Florida. And I can only remember one time after 3 days of clouds that we actually ran out of hot water. We had solar energy on our house to heat our swimming pool, and we never had a problem with having enough sun to heat the swimming pool. So I'm outraged that Duke Energy sticks it to us with fees for things that are never going to produce energy, and then thumb their noses at the people who want to take advantage of the Florida sun that seems to permeate every other part of our life. It's, you know, skin cancer, and it's this, that, and the other, but all of a sudden when it comes to Duke Energy, we don't have enough sun to produce solar energy, and I just can't imagine how stupid they must think we all are.
My name is Andrew Stebbins, and I just have a few complaints about Duke that I think we all share. Number one is the Levy County nuclear plant that never actually materialized, which is going to cost over $1 billion, which has been, and that cost is going to be shifted to the customers. The other one that's even more atrocious is the Crystal River nuclear power plant. The costs I last reported on that are going to be about $5 billion, and customers are going to be on the hook for approximately 50% of that. And if you're not familiar with that situation, it's quite appalling. At that time, when Florida Power took the risk of going ahead and doing some maintenance on the nuclear reactor themselves in order to save a few tens of millions of dollars. In the process, they made a mistake and didn't hire, an engineering company, took the risk on themselves, and that risk has shut down that plant and cost $5 billion to the, $2.5 billion to us ratepayers on a risk that they took. And the shareholders are not absorbing any of that cost, which is a crime. The other thing is I own a business, and they changed the billing cycle. They extended one of the billing cycles on our bills without telling anybody, which purposely increased the rates that we pay because that extended the time period. If, depending on your usage, could have increased that amount. Also at the business, we accept payments for Duke Energy, and so we meet many of the clients that pay these bills, and we get constant complaints from them. Many of the clients tell us that they'll come in with bills that 1 month it'll be $300+ and the next month it'll be $100, and they try to get an explanation for it, they can't. I believe we pay the highest rates in the state of Florida with Duke Energy, and I believe Duke Energy has the lowest ratings of any utility company in the state of Florida for customer satisfaction.
Anybody else? So, how many happy Duke Energy customers do we have in this room? How many unhappy?
I'm not joking, I turn on the electric and the light goes on. But I live in a small little condo, so
How many unhappy Duke Energy customers?
I want to speak.
Okay.
I'm Naomi Grubowskis. I'm a resident of St. Petersburg, and I have been for many, many years. I am not happy with Duke Energy. I think they're ripping the Floridians off. I think I represent most of you that are here. We want a change, and I encourage you to, whether it's with this lady who's going to rally for us against Duke Energy or whoever, we need to have a change. We need to get rid of them. We need to have an opportunity to have solar energy. And they are prohibiting us from doing that. We are not stupid Floridians. We know this is the Sunshine State, and we can have solar energy. I have a friend of mine sitting back there who lives she lives part of the time in New Jersey, part of the time in New York. She has the ability to have her utility company put solar panels on her house without any cost to her. She rents them, she pays for the rental, but her utility bill is minor, $42, whatever the case may be. Sometimes she has more energy that she uses. And now this is New Jersey, this is not Florida. And the utility company buys it back from her. So it's cost effective. We as the consumer need to go out and do what is right for us. We cannot allow Duke Energy to think that we're foolish. We are not. We are intelligent human beings, and I think they think we're stupid. We are not. So let's rally together. Let's do something to change the laws. And I'm happy to help do that. I'm an attorney. I have a friend here who's an attorney. We'll help with the legislation if we can. But I come here to you not as an attorney. I come to you as a consumer, just like you are. And I think that we need to do something. So let's do it together, shall we?
Any more? Before we start talking about why Floridians don't have energy choice? I would like to make one announcement. I will give you my background. I'm one of 22 people that founded the Tea Party movement nationally in 2009. I've been a conservative activist since 1976. I've been elected a delegate to the Republican National Convention twice. I consider myself a right-wing radical grandmother, but I know there are a lot of grandparents in this room. But I'm also true to my free market principles. There are a lot of conservatives that tout free market, except when it comes to energy and monopolies. Republicans and conservatives should be champions of free market choice. They should not be champions of monopolies. I began to get involved with solar because, like many of you in this room that had grievances against Duke Energy, I had grievances against Southern companies, Georgia Power. I was livid over the fact that legislation was passed that allowed them to bill utility customers in advance for two nuclear reactors. The nuclear reactors had tremendous projected cost overruns, yet Georgia Power was still allowed to make a 10.5% profit off of those cost overruns. How many in this room understand that every time one of these government-created monopolies have to construct a power plant, or they go and invest in Oklahoma in an expensive fracking venture, make a guaranteed profit off the investment? Not only do they make a guaranteed profit off of the electricity and electrons they sell, they make a guaranteed profit off the construction cost. It's usually 10.5% to 11%. This is one reason they don't like solar, because the more solar flourishes, the less of a chance is that they have to construct new power plants. And construction and paying for new power plants hurts senior citizens the most. So I had my grievance with Georgia Power is what led me to realize that solar allowed customer choice. The average person could not go out and build a new power plant, but they sure as heck could put solar panels on their rooftop. One of the major impediments to this are, I'll give you a few of the case scenarios. In Georgia Power, we have a PSC that is directly elected by the people. So they are much more responsive to the needs of the utility customers. And we were advocating that Georgia Power add more solar in their portfolio. There's a group in Georgia, and I fully expect the same thing to happen here, that is backed and funded by their funders and contributors have vast interest in fossil fuel, so they want to cut out competition. They don't want solar to flourish, and they put out completely false and misleading statements about what requiring Georgia Power to add more solar would do. We butted heads. It was Americans for Prosperity, and we won that fight. And lo and behold, Georgia Power, it was a major fight because I went on national TV on Chris Hayes, MSNBC, and I called them out for being completely false and deceptive and putting out information. I expect the same thing to happen here. But we prevailed and we won. Georgia is more of a sunshine state than Florida is. And that fight is being led by conservative Republicans are leading the fight in Georgia. Utility grade solar just came in. Georgia Power announced 6 months ago at 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. We have no subsidies, state subsidies in Georgia. But yet, Georgia Power, we had to bring them kicking and screaming to add more solar. Now they realized, well, it is good, and we can make a profit on it. They're getting ready to add even more solar. More than that, they have agreed, there's a group led by Craig Briscoe in Georgia that has introduced legislation by Republicans that will allow third-party leasing and sales of solar in Georgia, which means that if you are a homeowner and you want solar panels on your rooftop but you don't have any money for upfront cost, a solar developer can install those panels and you just basically buy the power from them for a set time period. The rates are fixed for 20 years. The sun never sends a rate increase. And Georgia Power is supporting that bill. The big difference, now let's contrast that with Florida. In 2006, good old Governor Jeb Bush introduced legislation that would allow the utilities to bill you, the utility customer, in advance for any construction project. That is what led to Duke Energy, you guys paying for power plants, nuclear plant that's offline. Another big difference in Florida is that you have appointed members of the Public Service Commission that apparently believe they just need to listen to government-created monopolies, and they don't need to listen to ratepayers. The PSC was appointed. It's no secret that these utilities spent millions and millions and millions of dollars giving to the campaigns of some of the Republican elected officials. Millions. Guess whose money they used to buy influence? That's your money, utility customer money that they get from you. So they're using your money to work against your best interest. So that's why you have a PSC that continues to allow Duke Energy to bill you. That's why you have a PSC whose chairman made the statement that the Sunshine State is just a license plate slogan. That is one of the reasons they answer to the monopolies. They're allowing FP&L to go to Oklahoma and invest in Oklahoma's natural resources with risky fracking ventures when FP&L could stay in Florida, invest in Florida's biggest natural resource, the sun, and create jobs for Floridians. Yes, ma'am.
I I watched that on TV, and Florida Power was actually given permission to make a profit when they explored.
Oh, they do. That's what I was talking, because it's a capital investment. Utilities, any capital investment they make a guaranteed profit on that, and it's usually 10.5% to 11% off of a capital investment. So even if utility customers are left holding the bag, like Duke Energy customers were for these failed nuclear, the power plants they're not completing, they still are making a profit off of that investment. That's the way the system has been set up. I think that's wrong for them to do that. I think it's deplorable that you have a unelected, bureaucratic public service commission that looks out for the best interest of the stockholders of these government-created monopolies, when their mission statement says they are to look out for the best interest of ratepayers. Georgia's Public Service Commission looks out for the best interest of utility customers. They're elected directly by the people. Florida is PSC is appointed, I think it's by Governor Scott, and confirmed by the legislature. So they look out for the best interests of the financial contributors that contribute to all of these political campaigns. I think that is deplorable that they would do that. I think you have a PSC that is unresponsive to the people. They don't listen to you. Conservatives for Energy Freedom. That's why we're having a listening tour, because we want to hear from you, the utility customers, about what rights you would like to have, about the concerns that you have. Because we have, Florida has a public service commission that could care less if they hear from you or not. So, and I think it's deplorable. Ma'am, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be glad to interrupt for this.
Well, I like what you're saying.
Okay.
I agree with it 100%.
Well, good.
My name is Wilma Henriksen, and I just represent myself. And first of all, I'm grateful for the Tampa Bay Times, and Ivan Penn happens to be the writer for the newspaper that gives us the truth about the reality of the Duke Energy. And
Ivy, would you please stand up and take a bow? I'm sorry.
Thank God the paper wasn't controlled by the legislature.
Well, I love you guys too. Yeah. Sorry about that, Ivy. Another impediment to choice in Florida is because of the laws, the Territorial Act that created the monopolies. The governments created these monopolies at a time when they were trying to expand electric service. Monopolies abuse this. I know a lot of people that are self-employed. For example, if you have a car dealership, and you decide you want to go out and build a new showroom, wouldn't you love to have the ability to bill your customers in advance, not only make a profit off of the cars and vehicles you sell, but make a profit off the construction cost? No wonder there's been so many irresponsible decisions by the monopolies in Florida in building new power plants. That's their responsibility. That their stockholders should pay for that, not captive utility customers. You have nowhere else to go. There are some Republican elected officials and groups, there are a few that believe that, they say they believe in the free market, but they want to protect the interest of the monopolies. That is a violation of free market principles to do that. It's wrong to do that. And as I said, you have these monopolies that are looking out for the best interests of their stockholders. And by the way, Southern Company, their CEO, which FPL is part of, and good old Georgia Power and Alabama Power, their CEO actually makes, last time I checked, roughly $15 million a year. Southern Company. Now, I don't have a problem with high executive salaries if a company in the free market or corporation wishes to pay their CEO that much. But let's be honest, they have captive customers, captive ratepayers, and they make a guaranteed profit. How many in this room would like to own a business where you have the same perks and luxuries that these monopolies have in Florida?
I want it.
Everyone. We have a real fight ahead of us. I mean, I face this in Georgia. I mean, I've gone all over Indiana, Wisconsin. Solar is under attack by groups that are, you know, their contributions and funders have interest in fossil fuel. So there's going to be a lot of incorrect information. And if any of you did not get one of my business cards, would you please raise your hand? Tory, would you give these out? I want you guys to email me because I want to put you on the email list because I'm going to send you action alerts. This is my email. It will be set up. The email will be set up tonight according to Nick, our web developer. I want you to email me with questions. If you want facts, if some of your friends or neighbors are saying one thing and you want to find out if it's true or if it's untrue, do not hesitate. Pick up the phone, call me. Don't hesitate to email me, and I'll give you all of this information because this is not my first rodeo, so to speak. I've been through these fights. I never get in a project that I'm not in it to win. And especially when it's the utility customers that I want to come out the winners in this. The utility customers, Conservatives for Energy Freedom, I see us as the group that's taking up for the little guy. That's taking up for the people that don't have tons of money to donate. And we're here in Florida fighting for you. There are a lot of conservatives that really believe in the free market and they're principled. We sent a press release out today and it will go to more news outlets tomorrow, and we announced that a coalition of roughly 85 Tea Party, 912 groups, and other conservative groups, the coalition is called The Tea Party Nation, has signed on to fight for you for solar choice, and they're signed on to help with this ballot initiative. Now that's huge that they did that because I can tell you in Georgia and some of these other states that they actually made the mistake of calling me a tree hugger. They made the mistake of saying I was liberal, and when I told them, Google my name and you see how wrong you are. I serve on the board of directors of Tea Party Patriots. I'm still very active in the Tea Party movement, but solar and green energy is my passion. We are in the midst of an energy revolution in our nation now. It unites activists from across the political spectrum. And we're fighting for what we believe is energy freedom and energy choice. We are facing very well-funded groups that want to kill solar. We're facing very well-funded monopolies that are going to pull out all the stops to defeat solar. So it's going to take all of us working together to give Floridians solar choice. We need to work hand in hand. Let's not focus on the issues that divide us. Let's focus on this issue. And I can promise you, we are going to win this battle. And we are in a battle for energy choice in this state. And we're going to present Tory Perfetti, who is the State Director for Conservatives for Energy Freedom. He's also the chairman of Floridians for Solar Choice. Because of the very heavily funded campaigns and elected officials in the legislature, we have tried for, Susan, how many sessions to pass legislation that opened up the market for solar? And it always died in committee. There's a tangible property tax on solar. And some of the things that we need to do that we're going to be supporting, and Tory's going to give you more information, we're going to support legislation to repeal the tangible property tax on solar. We're going to be supporting legislation to reform the Public Service Commission in Florida, and we're going to be supporting the ballot initiative that Tory is going to talk to you about. We have handouts that you'll be given when you leave. It's got the legislation we're supporting, who to call. Each of you in this room, when you go back home and you're back in, everyday life, reach out to people. Have them join us. Have them volunteer. Because together, we the people can make a bigger difference, and we can defeat the money of fossil fuel interests and these giant monopolies. And it is an honor to work side by side with each of you in this room. And I can promise you, this is a battle we're going to win. Somebody called me in one of the other states and I was an energy terminator, because if I was told no one time, I kept coming back and kept coming back and kept coming back. Never give up the fight. And as I said, it is a pleasure to be in this room. And by the way, the legislation we're supporting was introduced by Republican legislators. Even Republicans are tired of what's going on and the stronghold that the monopolies some Republicans have in Florida. I'm going to turn this over to Tory Perfetti, and then we're going to give you, I'm going to give you your marching orders after Tory speaks, and we will. Does anybody have any questions before I turn it over to Tory? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so say you wake up tomorrow and all the wishes you want have come true with your objectives. Could you tell me what that vision is?
To actually allow, there's a lot of objectives. But sometimes you have to focus on one at a time. What I'd clearly like to see is to open up the market and allow competition and choice for decentralized energy like solar. I believe that farmers, if they have farmland, they should put a solar farm on their farmland and be able to sell the solar to their friends or neighbors if they so choose. But this is just one step. So what we're focused on now is removing the tangible property tax, restructuring the PSC, and opening up third-party sales of solar in Florida. And then there's next steps and next steps. I think some of the next steps would be to expand net metering. Solar's under attack by a group called the American Legislative Exchange Council. In a lot of the states that actually have progressive solar policies and the market's open, they're trying to scale back and roll back those policies. They also happen to be funded by fossil fuel interests. So I think if I could have my wish list, it would be for this first initial step is for this ballot initiative to pass, the PSC to be restructured, and tangible property tax to be removed. But these are just first steps. Yes, sir.
has anyone calculated the amount of money, interest or the profit that's given to stockholders at the end of the year that leave the state or go overseas? In other words, Swiss banks may be buying Duke Energy, and we have a profit, a monopoly providing profit to a foreign company. I mean, country. Come on.
Well, I mean, does anybody have, I don't think we have the figures for that.
I think we should look at that.
But I agree, and
That's
this is a suggestion. This is why you need to email me your suggestions, because we're in this fight together. That's why I made sure all of you had my cards. Wait until in the morning to email me, because the email's being set up tonight. But this is why I gave you my cards, because I want to hear your suggestions. And I want to hear your comments. Yes, sir.
It would seem to me that what you're doing here is a perfect scenario for our homeland security. Because right now we're concerned about cybersecurity attacks and electrical grids and all of that. If we had 20 million people, 20 million solar plants, one around this condo and one with the farm and one over here, well then we're not subjected to attacks by Chinese government cybersecurity hackers. This is a brilliant idea to avoid that concentration.
I am glad you brought that up.
Resources to 1 or 2 or 3 power plants.
And if you email me, I can send you. This is another reason that I like solar. I fully believe it's a national security issue. That's one of the reasons I became interested as well. There's nothing more centralized in our country and more vulnerable to terrorist attack than our power grid. The National Energy Regulatory Commission issued a report, and the Wall Street Journal actually ran a story on it, that they found we have roughly 54,000 substations in our nation that terrorists could take down 9 key substations. It would cause a domino effect. It would plunge our nation in darkness from coast to coast. I think it's last year, hackers were caught, I think it's like 119 or 120 times trying to hack into our grid and infrastructure, trying to find out the details. There's already been a terrorist attack. I bet nobody in this room heard about it. In April of 2013, the substation that powers Silicon Valley, and it was briefly mentioned in some of the news stories. Glenn Beck, the Blaze, who all conservatives know Glenn Beck, ran a story on it. On early morning, the telephone lines were cut. The terrorists cut telephone lines leading to and from this substation that powered Silicon Valley in California. They opened fire on the substation with AK-47s. Did not hurl bombs, did not use explosives, AK-47s. Took the substation down, and they just disappeared in the darkness before law enforcement came. Many intelligence people believe that it was terrorists testing our vulnerability to see what would happen. Under the Bush, when George W. Bush was president, he tasked Homeland Security to do a vulnerability assessment on our grid. And when the report came in, he classified it, and President Obama declassified it. And it goes into great detail talking about the national security risk of our power grid and how all this equipment is old and how long it would take to be brought back online. I can tell you that in Silicon Valley, that substation, since it was just one substation and it did not cause a domino effect, they were able to reroute power from other sources. But it took 6 to 8 weeks to have the power restored to that substation and have it functioning again. Imagine if there's a well-coordinated attack. It's not just China. Russia, Al-Qaeda terrorists from some of these Islamic radical countries have been caught trying to hack into our power grid. And if you have 20 million rooftop solar, it would not cause a devastating effect on our nation if a lot of people had solar. There's a reason that big stores and businesses like Walmart are going solar. I will never forget, about a little over a year ago, I was at a reception in Washington, D.C. for veterans. They were taking, it's a solar group that was taking veterans and trained them how to be solar installers. And I actually saw a vice admiral. And so I asked him, I said, I've heard military is going to solar. And I said, are you being forced to by the Obama administration? And he looked me square in the eye and he said, no ma'am. He said, it's a matter of national security. He said, we can't afford to have our military bases cut off from power in case of a terrorist attack. He said the first thing they're going to do is try to disrupt the transmission lines going in to the military bases. He said, we can't afford that. And that's why a lot of these military bases, because we are in an age of where terrorism happens all over the world. It's just a matter of time before our grid's taken down. That's another reason rooftop solar is extremely important. And if you email me, I'll be glad to send you the links to the articles. But the night I talked to that Vice Admiral, I did not sleep very well because he explained to me that I can't go into detail just how easy it would be for terrorists to take down our grid in case of a terrorist attack. They don't have to have access to the substations. They don't have to go inside. They don't have to hack into the infrastructure system. The reason they're trying to hack into the infrastructure system is to get the schematics and details of where some of the key substations are. But that's a very valid point. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, the companies that are involved or benefit from solar power, for example, like Solar City and stuff, how unified or active are they in your causes?
I don't think, they're not helping us with this. I'm sure they probably would be, but I know they're not, Solar City's not been really involved in any of the fights in other states. I'm sure they, we'd love to have their help, but I really don't know anybody with Solar City that could give money. At this point, I can tell you how committed I am to this. I had a very good job in the IT field. I was a systems engineer for Microsoft, and I gave that up to move toward doing this full time because I'm so committed. I'm a grandmother. I'm sure we have a lot of grandparents in this room. And I have one grandchild. My daughter and son don't like me because they have not blessed me with another grandchild, which I'm still hoping. But December 3rd, 2008, my grandson Aiden was born. And when he was born, I began to think about what the world would be like when he was grown. And so I began to think about the environment. I wanted him, to have the same freedom and choice I had growing up. So when you have the birth of a grandchild really starts you thinking about what their future is going to be like. And I want my grandson to grow up with energy choice. I want my grandson to grow up with green space and parks and clean air and clean water. And that's something I want. Ronald Reagan. He's not known for being an environmental president, but I can remember when I was growing up, how many in this room remember the aerosol cans we used to have? Ronald Reagan found out, and George P. Shultz, who was the Secretary of State, received evidence that they were depleting, the fluorocarbons were depleting our ozone layer. So he actively worked and lobbied and signed the Montreal Protocol in, I believe it's 1984. And he has made several statements. He did not like excessive regulation. I don't like excessive regulation either. And but he said that being good stewards of our natural resources should not be a partisan issue. And it's really unfortunate that in the past 10 years, we have allowed it to become a partisan issue. The Republican Party had a long history of being conservationist. Look at Teddy Roosevelt. Look at Richard Nixon. Look at Barry Goldwater. And I just find it unfortunate that they've moved away from that. And but again, it's going to take, I fully believe that the real power is with the people. And if we rise up and we demand energy choice and energy freedom, and we contact our elected officials and demand the same, we're going to win. In Georgia, I mean, we spent maybe $500 and we defeated Americans for Prosperity and these giant monopolies. So, and it was, what I refer to as people power. And, I'll put my money on people power every day of the week. Any more questions? Okay, Tory?
Everybody hear me? Okay, good. Thank you for all coming tonight. I do appreciate it, and I will not make this very long, I promise. I know how town halls can get. I am currently wearing two hats. The first hat is I'm the Director for Conservatives for Energy Freedom in Florida, and I'm also the Chairman of Floridians for Solar Choice, which is the ballot initiative is being run under. And it's also the umbrella group that has what I like to call multi-partisan representation. And then we go even further than simply parties, political groups, or what have you. We also have business groups. A lot of people might not have heard, especially if you've been maybe perhaps glimpsing at a lot of the articles on this. The Florida Retail Federation stood with us on January 14th, and they announced, do you think have $20,000 or $15,000 or $25,000 to go, hey, I'm going to install it on my roof right now. I'll write that check right up front, and I'll take responsibility for that solar panel right at that moment. We're all out there. We're in the economy. We understand that, sure, there's a recovery for a specific percentage of individuals, but for a lot of people, wages haven't been going up. Jobs haven't been getting better. Not a lot of people have $20,000 to do that. This is going to allow them to enter into a contract to have the cost fronted. Then they can have that contract represent, according to whatever they enter into an agreement with that company, to lower their bills over time and pay for those panels. Further, it's going to allow, for instance, we'll take Publix as an example. It's going to allow Publix to have a supersized strip center, and they can have solar installed on the retail square footage they own, and then sell that energy to their contiguous properties that are in their renting. So this is going to allow businesses to have a huge advantage in regards to lowering their energy bills. You've got some businesses, in fact one in particular in Florida, that uses over 1 billion kilowatt hours per year. Just as an example, because I have no understanding yet of how much we'll save, I just know that when the free market enters, it will save people money. Think about if you could even save 10% on those billion kilowatt hours as a retail business. If you were paying $1 billion a year in energy costs, or it would be more actually at 11, 10 cents, 12 cents per kilowatt hour, you're talking $10 billion a year, and you save 10%, think about what that means. Cost savings. And that cost savings will then be transferred over to individuals. Then further, you're going to hear somebody say, well, what about people who rent? Well, guess what? This is designed to allow landlords to have this installed on an apartment complex if they'd like, and also have these benefits passed along to their renters. So we took a lot of time and a lot of effort making sure that this had net benefits for the consumer, for the business, and for the state of Florida. This does not mandate, this ballot initiative does not mandate that any of you buy solar or that anybody in this state leave the grid. It does not mandate. If you hear somebody say, well, what you're telling us is we're going to trade one utility for another utility to sell power. This does not mandate you do anything. It does not increase taxes. There's nothing in the ballot initiative, they're on the table on your way out if you haven't gotten one, that says anything about taxes. There's no subsidization of this industry, of the solar industry in there. And there's no transference of money from one account to another in order to pay for this. This is truly about allowing the individual consumer and businesses to practice commerce, to give you choice. As another crude example, think about this. What if Mercedes-Benz, and please don't be offended, I like Mercedes, I'm not picking on one over another, but think about if Mercedes-Benz decided to outlaw the purchase of BMW, and they further decided to collect taxpayer dollars to build production facilities, whether or not they went up, and then further made sure that there was a guaranteed rate of return on the revenues that they earned, or what we would call a guaranteed profit. Think about what any of us in this room would be thinking if they had one car company outlawing another. So what will happen, and I heard the question, what would happen on the day after? What will happen on the day after is commerce will be allowed by all of you to practice it. Free market, supply and demand, anything that you do normally regarding that currently. And for anybody who's concerned about, well, so what are we talking about? A completely and totally unregulated industry that's going to develop, and we're going to have all these horror stories out there about this guy and that guy installing shiny equipment. Look, everyone who practices specific commerce in the state of Florida goes through their permitting processes. They already have the processes set up when a company comes out to install any type of product in your home. Now, we of course have to be good stewards of our own decision making, so you're going to have to investigate whatever company enters into an agreement with you. But they're going to just be treated like any other company. So there's no legislative action that's going to be needed if this passes, or I should say when this passes. This is not going to need any of that. We already practice commerce. You already buy cars. You already go out to Home Depot or Ace Hardware and have concrete brought out to your home, or have a roof installed, or have an air conditioner put in your house. So that's what this is basically going to be doing. So when you hear people in the future tell you, oh, no, this is going to mandate that something happen, it doesn't mandate. And this is, of course, I know we've been talking about Duke, we've been talking about utilities, and I realize that most of the room is unhappy with that. Look, this does not take you off the grid. This is within 2 megawatts. To give you an example, the Orlando Convention Center is 1 megawatt up there. So 2 megawatts, 2 of the Orlando Convention Centers. Okay, the utility companies, where you and your interaction with utility companies, you can have your solar and you can have your utility company electricity. You don't have to go off the grid. Nobody's talking about destroying anything. This is not anti-utility, this is anti-current policy. This isn't about trying to put us against them only. This is about giving people the ability to move into the future, to have better choice for the way that energy policy will be conducted for you. Now, joining this, as Debbie said, Concerns for Energy Freedom, on that hat, we will be fighting legislative battles. We will be fighting to make sure that the tangible property tax is removed. We'll be fighting for easement of the abasement. We'll be fighting to help reform the PSC. And we do have some legislators that are starting to participate. How many of you ended up getting this with the 2 bills on here that we've highlighted? If you haven't, you can get on the way out. And I'm not going to bore you and go down into the weeds. Basically what's happening is the Republican officials, and of course Democratic officials, are getting on board and saying, wait a minute, wow, not only does this need to be done, but the people are with us. And you know, it really is a lot of times up to us to demonstrate what our thoughts are. It is up to us. A lot of us ignore that. Sometimes we think, hey, I'll go to Starbucks today, I'll go to Panera tomorrow. I was at Panera earlier. You know, we can be sucked into the classical music and forget about things that happened. But really, it's up to us to highlight something's wrong, something's incorrect, and we want something changed. You call your legislator up and say, look, I don't like this. They actually do listen a lot of times if enough people do start calling up, or if that same person calls a lot. So the first bill, you've got Jeff Brandis, is attempting to get onto the ballot an amendment. Of course, it does have to go through the Senate and the House to help us rid ourselves of the personal tangible property tax. And Senator Jeff Brandis, for any of you in this room, you should call him and say thank you. You should call him and give him your support. It's very easy. Go on Google, Senator Jeff Brandis, his office will come up, tell you just who to call. You can read the guts of what the bill stands for on here. You can click up the bill, SJR 400. You can go click that right in on Google. It'll take you right there. The second, we have a couple individuals, newly elected Representative Chris Sprawls, District 65, North Pinellas, along with Senator John Lake, and we also have, I believe, Chris Lavala and Jack Lavala have another bill introduced for reforming the PSC, but these bills are dealing with reforming the PSC. And again, I don't want to bore you guys with a ton of nuances, because I want you to go read for yourself, because this is a very easy thing. You guys can go understand this, you can see what's happening. But they're introducing bills to reform the PSC, and it's about time as well. And we'll be fighting in that battle. You know, at one point in time in Florida, people don't remember, we actually used to elect our PSC members. Up until the late 70s, all of you, myself, we all used to elect our PSC board. That ended. Now, the PSC, as Debbie mentioned, doesn't usually work in the best interests of the utility customers. They don't usually work in the best interests of business owners. And that's another thing I want to make sure I do address again. The Florida Retail Federation, this is a very, very big deal. When you have companies as large as Walmart, as large as Publix, and all of us in this room know Walmart and Publix and many of these businesses, they're not known, even if they do have partisan leanings, they're not known for necessarily getting fully in partisan fights. They're known for getting in fights that are going to aid them and help them. They see the betterment of their futures by having this happen as well. Can tell you when somebody says, oh, this isn't going to work, it's inefficient, it's this and that. I'm pretty sure companies of that magnitude have taken a long look at a cost analysis, benefit, non-benefit, and seen that it is a benefit. So I really cannot stress enough that we have had a very easy time. Well, these articles, everybody talking about this, you haven't seen any commercials run, we've had a very easy time about this. It's a very common sense approach. Pay very close attention to what's happening, because I can tell you, a one-time miracle is not going to simply develop from the same usual suspects who have been fighting this up till now. That's what someone would like you to think. But it is going to take us being vigilant and remembering that this amendment to the Constitution is a net-net win. A net-net win for all of us. And we do need your help. We do need you to call in. Please email us. Again, we'll give you my card and my phone number. This isn't going to be easy. And as Debbie mentioned, and I'll mention here, I don't get paid for this either. I'm not against that, by the way. You know, down the road, there's money to pay me to drive around and do the things I'm doing now. Don't be surprised to say, hey, he's getting $500 a month, maybe pay for expenses. I'm going to, welcome that. But right now, it's all on me. It's all on Debbie. We make sure that we donate our time. And I'm used to that. You start a fight, things come after. But it does take somebody to start the fight. And we've had a lot of great allies. And I want to tell you, too, we have Christian Coalition involved, Christian Coalition USA, Republican Liberty Caucus for the state of Florida. The Libertarian Party of Florida has endorsed this. On the left, you've got Southern Alliance for Clean Energy. You've got solar companies. You've got individual, as business, not necessarily solar companies on the left, but solar companies have endorsed this as well. And you've got your individual liberal groups that have come on board. So, again, I thank you very much. And at this time, if you have any questions for me as well. Yes,
so, best case scenario, if everything went your way, this could start happening, this says January of 17?
It is designed to be self-enacted. So basically what would happen is, best case scenario, you don't need legislative approval to practice commerce. We already do that. So when this passes, yes, January, the process can start where you have choice. Any other questions?
So
you're still attached to the grid, of course, you're going to have to be dealing with individuals with the utilities. And as far as the regulation of this and what will happen, just like you would enter into any other contract, the determinant of how much your kilowatt per hour will be charged will be between you and that company.
So it's not going to be standardized.
The standardized...
Just like Duke has to follow how much they charge by their COG line fees and stuff like
Absolutely. You're going to be able... So an example could be if I had a solar company and you're the homeowner and I front the cost of the solar installation on your home and you enter into agreement where I say for the first 5 years, now this is, of course, spitballing here, that I'm not a solar company. I don't own a solar company nor paid by solar companies. But if the solar company said for the first 5 years you'll pay 12 cents a kilowatt hour, which matches your current 12 cents, or 11 cents, which matches your 11 cents, or over 3 years. And then they say for the 5 years after that, you're at 8 cents or 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So you're going to be entering into a contract to determine what you're going to be paying. I mean, some people will have larger installation bills than other people. That's not something that I would ever get into the weeds of attempting to micromanage a contract between an individual and a company. So.
I can tell you in some of the other states that I've been active in that actually have what we're trying to pass here, the norm is you enter into and it will be your choice. Trust me, once this passes, you'll have a lot of companies coming in competing for your business. But the norm in a lot of the states that I've been active in is that you sign a 20-year contract and you have a fixed rate for 20 years. That means you never get a rate increase, and it's usually 10 to 15% less expensive than what you're paying now. And that's what it normally is. And that's in some of the other states, but they're all going to be competing for you, for your business. I mean, I think you're going to have a flood of companies come into Florida competing for your business. You have a choice whether you have Walmart, Kmart, Target, all competing for business when they're in the same town. So they're going to be working to outdo each other. And I think that's what's going to happen in this case.
Well, and you think about it, there hasn't been as much incentive, to provide that kind of competition in Florida because of what we've been talking about. So there's an unprecedentedness that comes along with this. And the end result is going to be a net benefit for everybody. We just don't know how much of a benefit that's going to be. Your cost savings could be astronomical. So this is something, though, that the free market will take hold and it will work. Yes, sir.
I have a question. You guys really haven't talked anything about net metering associated with solar panels. I don't know if you want to touch on that, because I think that's actually been threatened by the legislation to take net metering away.
Absolutely. Well, you'll read on here, and this says up to 2 megawatts. So you'll read in the ballot initiative. So basically what's going to happen is up to 2 megawatts, you're not going to be allowed to get taken off the grid, which is in accordance with the current foundation of the net metering that exists. So and again, 1 megawatt Orlando Convention Center, you got 2 of those. Believe me, you're going to be well within the means of what you need to do. So within the net metering laws, this petition is designed to exist so that they can't come out, and by they meaning utilities, and say, wait a minute, we can take you off the grid. They can't do that within that 2 megawatts.
I can tell you about the net metering. There is a fight nationwide in here for trying to scale back net metering. For me, and this is the way I personally feel, and if they try to scale back net metering here, I can tell you conservatives for energy freedom will fight it on it. After we get through this battle, I'd like to expand it. But your captive customers, you are not allowed to take your excess electricity and sell it to friends or neighbor at a retail cost. So the utilities should pay more than wholesale for your electricity, because this is a fight that's going on, is what is the true value of solar? To me, it's less wear and tear on equipment, it's power plants, they don't have to build as many power plants, so there really is a some of the things they're gonna pull at us, they're gonna say, oh, well, fairness. You know, people that don't use solar or subsidizing solar panels. I mean, that's not true. We have arguments to fight every one of these. I prefer when you're going into a battle that we're proactive and not reactive. And that's why it's important for everyone in this room to contact me, get on the email list, and or Tory, so we have your email. When things like this arise, you're our foot soldiers, so we can contact you and say, we need you to do this. We need you to call this person. And, that's something that you'll hear from us with action alerts. Democrat Senator Dwight Dudley's introduced legislation that I really like, as far as he's advocating for a public service commission to be elected directly like they are in Georgia. So, I mean, all of this, we will send you action alerts. You're our foot soldiers. We're partners in all of this. So I would encourage you strongly, tomorrow, email me or call me so we can put you on our email list. Yes, sir.
We know that 25% of the power generated in Florida is generated by municipalities and co-ops. 35 municipalities and 15 co-ops generate 25% of the power, electric power. They're monopolies, but in a sense, government is a monopoly. But never. What's your strategy with these companies? Because their outreach is all the citizens that live in that municipality that generate. That's the first question I hope you would address tonight. The second is, who decided on 2 megawatts? Because normally in a negotiation, you ask for 4, you might get 2, that type of thing. So these are some issues I'm hoping we'll get to, because 2 megawatts, frankly, we don't think is enough. But who decided it and what was the rationale? We may be wrong, but so who decided on the 2?
Remember, when you take a ballot initiative in the state of Florida and you have to get it on the ballot, it has 2 processes. The first process is you have to collect 10% of the signatures that you're going to need to take it to the Supreme Court to have the Supreme Court review it, which means the Supreme Court takes it under its wing and they say, okay, you have these signatures, you can get it here, now let's take a look and see if the legal language meets the requirements. And you're going to have that language challenged. You're going to have that argued. You're going to have to see if it meets the actual standards of being a constitutional amendment to a constitutional ballot to amend Florida's constitution. So the 2-meter law is to make sure that the 2 megawatt law is to make sure that we fit within the actual standards that are currently usually debated or discussed. If you go beyond that, the utility companies have been known to argue that they can, for instance, do a study, say, I need to conduct a study before I let you connect to the grid because you're over 2 megawatts. So in order to make sure that we can have a net benefit and get something like this passed, we had to work within the framework that exists currently in the state of Florida. On the first question, if I understand you correctly, you're talking about municipal owned utilities and such as well.
When we studied the issue, I can say this. Well, it sounds a little negative, but there is an issue we have to deal with, and they're power generators, and you could say they're going to remain neutral. They're going to be for or against what we're doing. But the assumption is that they're going to remain neutral, and I'll tell you, I'm going to guess why, okay? Because we don't have a research company to find out why. But it's reasonable to say that the municipal companies are charging just a little bit below what Duke is charging, or what Florida Power and Light is charging, because their profit rolls back into the city budget. So they kind of like high prices, because that's income for the cities. That is one approach. And I'm not sure how to handle that, but or how you're going to deal with it, but it should be dealt with.
Well, the issue in regards to any utility, I mean, considering what this ballot initiative is, utilities in general may or may not like like it. We welcome them to participate in expanding their portfolios. You know, there's more than, there's different kinds of solar. You have utility-size solar. You also have individual solar that we're talking about with the ballot initiative. Regardless of whether they like it or not, regardless of what they want to do, what we're talking about is giving individuals the choice to enter into a contract, business and consumer. So,
Right, but they're getting competition just like the monopolies are.
absolutely.
Well, we should leverage, I mean, these are citizens of that municipality that are paying they're paying a monopolistic price minus a penny or two.
Well,
Yeah, email us and let us know.
Okay.
I mean, any more questions before we clear out? Yes, yes.
My understanding is that you need something like 70,000 signatures by the end of March. How many do you have to date?
well, we're going to have, be discussing that coming up at a future date. You know, want to make sure we do this in accordance with everything. As far as the amount of signatures that we need, the March is a little over 70,000 that to get to the Supreme Court. The actual number is right around 683,000. We're going to go for over 750 total thousand by February of next year. We're 100% confident that not only are we going to be able to announce within our time frame with full confidence of the 70,000 plus signatures to get us to the Supreme Court review, but we're fully confident we're going to get all the signatures that we need. This has been an unprecedented response. Democrats, Republicans, independents, non-affiliated business individuals, young, old, it has not mattered. I have not received one negative. And I know people say that, hey, yeah, well, of course, you're doing this. Why would you admit it? I would tell you if I had someone called me up and said something negative. I've had people who were neutral and were interested to learn, and then they've come on board. But I haven't had anybody respond to us negatively and say, oh, wait a minute, you're not mandating us to do anything, but you're giving me choice? Wait a minute, you're not raising my taxes, but you're allowing me to potentially enter into a contract, conduct commerce within the free market, and save money? I haven't had anybody oppose that, Democrat, Republican. Anyone.
We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Tory, thank you very much. He's done a tremendous job. He has done a tremendous job on the ground. I was very proud to have met him. And I actually met with him on a different matter, and when I wanted to expand conservatives for energy freedom in Florida, he was the first person I thought of, and that was the best decision I made. Now for marching orders. Email us tomorrow. Start spreading the word. Pick up these sheets on the back of the list of legislators. If you look, it's got Pinellas County on the back, so you'll see Jeff Brandy's. Sign this petition form. Help us spread the word. If you would like to volunteer, email us or call us. It's time for all of us to get ready to do battle. You know, they're going to throw a lot of things out, but we're prepared to counter, and we want to effectively provide you guys with information to help us in the field. We'll give you the talking points and everything you can use to counter the arguments that they're going to throw at you. And I appreciate all of you for coming. You are well worth the trip from Atlanta. So I appreciate it.